LA being torn apart and looking like a war zone on Friday, June 6th, over ICE raids. A report from KTLA says a series of U.S. immigration and customs enforcement ignited widespread protests, confrontations, and scenes of chaos as federal agents detained at least 44 individuals across Los Angeles on Friday. Agents moved in on at least 3 locations throughout the day. One of the most visible confrontations took place outside a Home Depot in the Westlake District, where day laborers often gather for temporary work. ICE agents in riot gear were seen clashing with and chasing people through the parking lot as stunned shoppers look on. This about a week after the ICE raid in San Diego at the Italian restaurant Buona Forchetta. So now ICE raids are being conducted in Los Angeles, and obviously Los Angeles is not taking it too well. And we're going to get to it a little bit later in the video, why these might not be the people that they want to be out protesting for. We'll show you a little compilation video of what is happening and the chaos that is ensuing after all of these ICE raids have been conducted.
There was earlier this morning, apparently a raid by ICE here at a business called Ambiance. Then a crowd started forming outside the perimeter. They started actually surrounding these buildings.
We have a piece of video. You can see that they've gotten the people and they put them in these vans. It was a very strange sight to see because they started to leave and there were people who were protesting trying to keep these vans from getting out. And the video seen here is deeply troubling because these officers, look, there's that person in front. And the officers did not stop, these agents or whatever federal authorities they were. And notice how this person continued to stay in front. And the officer did not slow. No officer came out and tried to get this out. And then watch as the person in front falls and hits his head on the ground. And that just seemed like it was an injury. But then these agents then moved aside and then immediately took off, and we watched these agents almost as if it was a chase. They got together in the caravan, and we watched as those agencies or those 3 vans went to the Roybal federal building where they took the people that they had detained. And that was the second caravan that had gone there.
I'm Giovanna Lotta. You're taking a live look at one of the protests underway in Los Angeles just a few hours after the mass immigration raids. Chris Christie is live in Air 7 with the latest. Chris.
That's right, Giovanna. It's a major protest going on about 2 hours now. Close to 1,000 people now wrapping around the detention facility between Alameda and Los Angeles Street. They started on the front steps of the federal building at 300 Los Angeles, now marching down Aliso. In the lead there is that cattle truck leading the pack as they make the turn onto Alameda Street. The strategy here is to basically encircle the detention facility, which is that building right there, where we understand there are actually some people inside of the building.
Not to miss an opportunity or let a crisis go to waste, Karen Bass has put out a statement about all these ICE raids. She goes on to say, quote, "This morning we received reports of federal immigration enforcement actions in multiple locations in Los Angeles. As a mayor of a proud city of immigrants who contribute to our city in so many ways, I am deeply angered by what has taken place. These tactics sow terror in our communities and disrupt basic principles of safety in our city. My office is in close coordination with immigrant rights community organizations. We shall not stand for this." Again, not to let a crisis go to waste when her city is already facing enough problems with a $1 billion budget deficit, homelessness continuing on the rise, downtown basically becoming Skid Row. Olympics are coming in just a couple of years. Oh, and by the way, they're still rebuilding from the wildfires, and it looks like they're not rebuilding just quick enough. Karen Bass is obviously using this to grandstand about what is happening with the ICE raid. And like I alluded to, there was some breaking news out of LA regarding the ID of some of the people that were detained by ICE in Los Angeles. And this is, let's just say, some of these people are not the ones you want to be out there protesting for or taking the side of. Bill Malugin, who is a reporter with Fox LA, tweeted this out last night. Federal sources ID some of the criminal illegal alien targets ICE arrested in their LA operation yesterday and today, which sparked violent protests. They include multiple gang members, convicted sex offenders, violent gun offenders, and drug offenders. One has already been deported. They include Rolando Veneracion Enriquez, a national of the Philippines who has prior convictions for sexual penetration with a foreign object, assault with intent to commit rape, and burglary, all in California. Armando Ordaz, a Mexican national and known gang member with convictions for sexual battery, receiving stolen property, and theft in Los Angeles. Victor Mendoza Aguilar, a previously deported Mexican national and known gang member with convictions for assault with a deadly weapon and possessing drug paraphernalia. Delfino Aguilar Martinez, a Mexican national with a conviction for assault with a deadly weapon causing great bodily injury in LA. So, this is kind of like the whole thing last week with Democrats and leftists couldn't wait 48 hours to get more information about what's happening. They had to have this knee-jerk reaction. And instead, they took the side of someone who was turned out to be not that great of a person in the owner of Bona Forqueta, who actually turned out to be abusive and exploiting illegal immigrant labor. Now you have people in LA who are taking to the streets and mass protest for people who are convicted felons. And that's who ICE is trying to take off of the streets in LA. This should be good news for Los Angeles because of these horrible crimes that some of these individuals have committed. Gang members, drug offenders, sexual offenders. These are all people who should not be on the streets of Los Angeles. There have been massive protests and people are taking the side of these individuals. And I guess they're protesting. They don't want these individuals deported out of the country, which is a weird stance. But again, leftists and Democrats continue to take this odd position that is not in line with the rest of America. These are the laws. We were told no one is above the law. These are the immigration laws. It is not perfect. I will admit that our immigration system probably needs a ton of reform. But these are the laws that are on the books, and either we abide by the laws, politicians make the hard choices and figure out how to fix those laws or reform those laws. But until then, those are the laws. Not to mention, this is an issue that I'm still confused as to why Democrats are holding on to it, because clearly after 2024, when they thought Donald Trump had no chance of winning again, he was buoyed and carried into with enormous support of the American people to execute what he called mass deportation. People voted for this. This was not like Donald Trump went in there and hid this agenda and surprised everybody. He quite literally campaigned on the idea of mass deportation, and he still won by a landslide against Kamala Harris. It was a pretty decisive victory. So the American people are behind this issue, and I'm not sure why Democrats continue to be against this issue. Now, there is something interesting that I want to point out about how she talks about how a lot of these immigrants, now they always conflate legal immigrants and illegal immigrants. Nobody is against legal immigrants, not that I know of. Most people, large majority, I would probably say pretty much 90% or more of the country is for legal immigration. Nobody has an issue with that. Democrats love to conflate the idea of immigrants and illegal immigrants, but she talks about how they contribute to our city. And I just want to bring this up really quick because I found this article and it talks about a USC report that goes on to talk about the amount of undocumented citizens or illegal aliens in Los Angeles County and in LA City. It goes on to talk about the issue of how much it does cost when you have illegal immigrants in your city. Now, keep in mind that it says in the article, this is from the California, and it says with 3.8 million Los Angeles City residents, the Los Angeles County's over 800,000 undocumented immigrants by USC estimates, more concentrated in just the city of Los Angeles alone, it's likely Los Angeles has at least 380,000 undocumented immigrants. This is where it gets really interesting, and I want to point this out because while Karen Bass is facing a $1 billion budget deficit. This is something she doesn't want to touch. This is the third rail of Democratic politics. She doesn't want to talk about how much it actually costs when you support illegal immigration. The city of Los Angeles received $22 million earlier this year from FEMA for migrant services, just one funding source among many and non-inclusive of other federal grants to non-government organizations and other groups that provide benefits for migrants. When the city described as broke by the city controller, right, it is broke because they're facing that $1 billion deficit and now having to borrow $80 million to make court-ordered lawsuit payments, it's unclear how the city can afford migrant services on its own if the Trump administration decides not to continue federal funding for migrant services. Mind you, $80 million is fighting out a lot of lawsuits that are liability, personal liability, city liability, stuff like that. Not to mention, they're also fighting out in court about homeless spending. If you remember, we talked about LAHSA, which was totally and absolutely incompetent when it came to managing homeless funds in LA County and the city of Los Angeles. Hundreds of millions of dollars went missing. The CEO has just resigned and tried to run away from this. A federal judge has continued to call in Karen Bass and other city officials into federal court and say, look, you either fix this and tell us what's going on, or we're going to take over. So that's a big issue and a federal fight that the city has to fight and pay for, mind you. The article goes on to say California could spend approximately $15 billion in state tax revenue on healthcare for the state's 2.7 million undocumented immigrants this year, or nearly $6,000 per individual. Gavin Newsom signed an executive order that would allow all undocumented citizens, regardless of age or anything, could sign up for Medi-Cal. Now, within a year, less than a year, Medi-Cal was broke. A couple months ago, Gavin Newsom had to go and beg the legislature for billions of dollars just to cover the expenses of Medi-Cal for that month. Almost up to $6 billion, I believe, just for that month, just to cover the expenses of Medi-Cal. That doesn't cover for the whole year or the rest of the year. They underestimated how many people would sign up and how many undocumented citizens would sign up. And the Medi-Cal system literally went broke within a year. So there was this issue of virtue signaling meeting reality, that California could not pay for the virtue signaling that they wanted to do, or Gavin Newsom wanted to do, back in 2024. Article goes on to say, based on the average undocumented worker wage in California of $13 per hour, an undocumented immigrant makes $27,040 per year, paying $464 in state income tax. Assuming 30% of income goes to rent and the rest goes to sales tax qualified spending, that's another $1,372 in state sales tax and $426 in the city of Los Angeles sales taxes. That's well short of just state Medi-Cal spending per undocumented individual and a fraction of the $3,076 spent by the city of Los Angeles per resident. So we have this issue that the laws are the laws. First off, the laws are the laws. Immigration system and immigration laws, not perfect, nothing really perfect. But if Democratic officials in Washington, when they were in Congress, when they had Obama in power, when they controlled the presidency and the House and the Senate and all of that, when they had Joe Biden in power, they never did anything on immigration. They never changed the laws to change this, so this never happened. Now that the laws are actually being enforced, they have an issue with that, and they make it a whole political standpoint. Another thing I want to point out is that U.S. Attorney Bill Assaly, who was just installed over a month ago by President Trump, has been pushing this operation called Guardian Angel, where they've had more leeway and they figured out really a way around the sanctuary policies of California. Guardian Angel is basically, they have figured out that if they issue a federal warrant as opposed to a detainer request to the state, then they have to hold on to these immigrants and they have to hand them over to the federal authorities. So there has been an enormous crackdown in LA at sort of the leadership of Bill Assaly, who was just in the assembly a couple of months ago, and now he's the U.S. attorney. But this shouldn't really come as a surprise to LA because back in February of this year, it was reported that ICE was already planning a large-scale crackdown in LA, which a leaked memo had shown that they were already planning on cracking down on a lot of illegal immigration in the city of Los Angeles. Again, this is not like this is a surprise that no one expected coming. Donald Trump campaigned on this, campaigned on mass deportation, won election decisively, said he's going to follow through with it. They said that they're going to crack down in the city of LA several months ago. Now there's crackdowns in the city of LA, and now they're shocked by this. But just like it's not surprising that President Trump and ICE were going to go and do this, American citizens knew this was going to happen. This is what American citizens had voted for. This is what the people voted for. So I guess you have to listen to it. Just because you lost the election doesn't mean you get to now throw a temper tantrum. It's not surprising that we see the same type of people who are out there protesting, Antifa wannabes, people flying Palestinian flags. Why Palestinian flags at an ICE raid? Who knows? While they're going to grandstand, while they're going to make this a whole political circus about all of this, and this is obviously going to make its rounds. It's already made its rounds on social media and everywhere. ICE has already said they're going to do this. They said they're going to enforce the laws. It's not a surprise to anybody who's been paying attention to what the administration of Donald Trump has been saying. But just to summarize for everything, Los Angeles is tearing itself apart. ICE raids are happening in Los Angeles City and in Los Angeles County. And based on the fact that they can't really pay for anything, I don't know if Karen Bass should be sending a quiet little thank you note to President Trump, but it's easy for her to grandstand when she has so many other issues facing her city. The American voters voted for strong immigration enforcement from Donald Trump, and this is what a lot of people have voted for. And Democrats continue to be on the wrong side of this issue for whatever reason. I'm not sure whether it's they don't want to say that they were wrong, they don't want to abandon a certain voter block. It's still perplexing to me, but regardless, they'll still take this side and they'll still grandstand over this. And the protests and all of this are going to continue in California because I have a feeling that ICE is just getting warmed up here in California. Between San Diego last week and LA now this week, I feel like there's probably more to come. And I think ICE probably is planning a lot more raids in California. So we'll keep an eye on that. But until then, let me know your thoughts. Do you think these ICE raids are justified? Do you think the law should be changed? Do you think that they are going too far? Or do you think this is good for the city of Los Angeles and the county of Los Angeles for all of these deportations? Let me know in the comments what you think, and we'll see you on the next one. Hey, thanks for checking out that clip from the California Underground podcast. If you enjoyed it, make sure you subscribe, like, share, review, comment, hit that notification bell as well. It all helps with the algorithm, helps us grow the channel, and helps support this show. If you just want to sit back and watch some more clips, you can click on this button right here. And if you want to subscribe to the show, you can click on this button right here. All right, thanks.